Hello, welcome everyone to Lines on the Page, Season 2, Episode 5. Today is going to be a really interesting one, not just because we're starting a little bit earlier than normal, but because this is going to be one of a couple different creatives that I'm trying to get onto the show and try to pick their brain and understand about all the different facets and what they get into regarding comics. And that's everything from writers to artists, colorists, editors, what have you. And when you really sit and think about it, there are multiple ways that we can put lines on a page. It's not always about drawing, but most times it is. We're talking about comics here. Duh. Anyways, before I introduce our special guest today, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. And starting off, that Haven Comics. We are located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. And if you have not stopped by to pick up stuff from your box, why haven't you? Why? I know you got comics. I read them too. Go get your comics. That's all we ask. We want you to have fun. Be sure to like and subscribe. Sorry, I'm looking at Kristian's facial reactions in the green room. Be sure to like and subscribe this video and any other video that we happen to do today. I am in rare form today. Sorry about this. And be sure, if you want to figure out where you can find me on social media, just go to my link tree or type into the search bar at tpriceartworks, and that is where you can find me. Now, without further ado, met this awesome person 2 years ago at Savannah Comic-Con, and I'm pretty sure he stalked me at some point on social media. I don't know who saw each other first, but you know what? It's a swell dude, and I think you need to get to know him too, and also read his stuff, including his new, I think it already has been released, if about to be released, comic we call The Mess. Without any further ado, let's just make sure I get this part right. Kristian Herrera!
Hey! How's it going?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Stop it. I love the applause.
Oh, you're welcome.
You can just
you're
play
welcome.
that the whole time if you want. I live for it.
You know, maybe, possibly. Looks like we already got some in the comments. Hey, James, how you doing?
Nice.
So, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. This is my first interview since I shaved my beard. So you're the first one in the public that I'm letting see my face before I regrow my beard out. So other than that, things are going good.
I mean, you posted some photos recently on social media without your beard, and that's what caught me off guard, was the fact
I
of
totally
like,
forgot about that.
He's a newlywed, his face is shaven. No,
Yeah.
domestication.
What's funny is I shaved it after I got married, and then everyone's like, "Oh, your wife told you," and I was like, "Oh, this was my own decision," and she was like, "Do whatever you want. I don't care." This was the best part.
I have been tempted to try to do the conquistador beard with the mustache and the thing.
So, yeah, I did that when I did that in like 6 years ago, I think, because that was during my Green Arrow phase. When I was trying to do the same thing.
Nice.
I got pictures of it, and it's not the greatest look. I keep looking at it, and I'm like, I could do it again. And my wife's like, no, you can't. Just stop. You're not doing that.
Like, well, you know, it happens to the best of us. It really does.
Yeah. I'm hoping to get a beard as full as yours one day.
Stop it, you. Just stop. All right, Kristian. So, yes. First things first, like what I usually do whenever I interview anyone, I like to talk about your comic book origin story of sorts, if you will. So we're going to talk about the things that got you into comics, what your influences are, and even your current favorite creators of any kind. So,
gotcha.
The floor is yours.
I'll do what my normal origin story is. I kind of talk a little bit about it at the back of my first issue of Sidekick for Hire, where I was a kid in second grade. Yeah. Or no, it was sometime in elementary school, first grade, second grade, and I went to the library. My grandmother, my mom took me to the library often, and the two comics that I would find were Dragon Ball and Ultimate Spider-Man. Now I read Dragon Ball, I loved it because I knew Dragon Ball Z, but I really gravitated towards Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley more so.
Mm.
And that was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this because this was growing up. This was a time when, oh, this is Spider-Man actually as a kid. In the other Spider-Man comics, he's more of an adult,
Yeah.
which is fine. It's just for me growing up, it didn't really get me into it as much.
Yeah, that was something that they tried doing with the Ultimate line, was just the fact that they
Yeah,
wanted to bring back the basics and have them be relatable for the 21st century.
younger,
So
yes.
yeah,
And it worked out really well for me, obviously, because I'm still loving comics. But yeah, that's how I first found out about comics. And elementary school was fine. Middle school, I kind of got bullied into that, or like bullied out of it. And I stopped reading comics for a little while. And then 2011, I was like, you know what? I'm going to read comics again. And the two comics that I've read were ironically the New 52 that came out. I was like, oh, perfect. I can start reading that. I know it wasn't the most popular thing for everyone, but it helped me as a reader, a new reader coming back.
I personally enjoyed New 52 more than Rebirth. I know a lot
Yeah.
of people. I know a lot of people at shop are kind of mixed about it because
Yeah.
it did start off pretty strong. Different avenues and looks about it, which they kind of needed to do
Not
that
all of them
kind of.
were bangers, I will say.
No,
Like,
yeah,
there was definitely good ones that those are the ones that I found and I still love, and I still have a few of my single issues left over from there, but those were really good ones.
yeah,
Now there was another character that came out in 2011, which was Miles Morales, because it was the Ultimate Spider-Man run. I was like, oh my god, this series is still going, and it would just everything kind of just worked perfectly
yeah.
for me. And I was like, okay, this is why I love comics. And so I got back into just reading all the superhero comics and everything like that. So that's kind of like my superhero origin story. And then I had the weird phase in high school where I got bullied in the beginning for liking this stuff. And then the Avenger movies started coming out. And
Yep,
everyone was like, oh, you're reading comics? What are those? Hey, tell me more about it.
yep,
And
yep,
then it became cool. So I got both worlds
yeah.
of it. But yeah, that's kind of like the origin story for me.
I feel like that was the. I feel like that was the standard thing. Just for like decades, it's just like if you like comic books or play D&D,
Yeah.
you just weren't cool. No one cared, and people tried to bully you
Mhm.
about it. And then all of a sudden, you have like all of these comic book movies popping up after 2010.
Yeah.
Which I mean, you had the Nolan Batman trilogy before that. You did have the
It,
Raimi
it was a
Spider-Man
it was a
movies.
weird
It,
time for that as well.
it
It's kind of superhero,
baby
but it was
steps. It was baby
yeah,
steps. Yeah,
it was definitely lean more realistic kind of
yeah.
stuff. But yeah, that was my origin for the most part, and I've loved comics ever since. And so much so that I decided to make a career out of it.
Yes, and which in this career we have one of the very first ones that you did, Psychic for Hire, followed by Prolong. How many people so far have cried after reading this book?
So I'm at 49 officially.
Still,
Yes.
still,
So
okay.
I was 48, and then a couple weeks ago, someone else told me they cried. So it was up at 49, and then someone. I try to be as truthful. I'd be as truthful and about as possible, but someone told me at Savannah that their friend read it and they cried, so I can bump it up to 50. And I was like, I appreciate it, but I need to hear it from them
Yeah, yeah.
because then it becomes a little convoluted. So I'm
Mm,
waiting for that. I could take that as a win, but I actually have to. Somebody either has to specifically tell me they cried, or email me, or message me, and whatever. So it became more of a marketing tactic.
it is a wholesome origin story,
Thank you,
and
Jay.
that's
If that
and that's what makes Christian a wholesome guy.
stop it. I try.
And
Try
now,
to be.
currently, your new one, we call them
Mhm.
myths. Now, here is kind of going back to the original question. Let's talk
Yeah.
about your influences regarding as a writer.
Hmm.
So who are your go-to people as far as comic book writing that's just like you get something back out from them, and
Yeah.
that kind
I
of puts you forward to whatever project that you're about to do?
I think starting out, obviously, like I already brought his name up, Brian Michael Bendis, like
Mhm.
reading his stuff throughout Marvel, kind of reading his Jinx world a bit, and now seeing some of his self-creator own stuff. I didn't get too into his DC run, but that was because I was reading some stuff outside of DC,
Right.
but it was had nothing to do with him. But yeah, he was definitely an influence. Ed Brubaker as well. That was that helped influence Prolong for me.
Mm.
Just trying to figure that out, and then now it's like I don't know. Like there's a lot of writers where I'm just like I want to do something similar, like what they're doing. Like obviously Chip Zdarsky, Donny Cates, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Kelly Williams, Gail Simone. Those are like people I'm like, oh, I really like what they're doing. And I think from whenever I talk to them, they're just good people.
Kelly Williams, as in long beard Kelly Williams.
Sorry, not Kelly Williams Longbeard. God, she did a Kate Bishop comic that I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Kelly,
Okay.
I feel so bad that I
I think
don't
I know who
remember
you're
her last.
talking about now. Yeah.
Yeah, but now like at this point too, there's other people in comics that are influencing me. Like I take inspiration from my peers at this point as well. Like other people I talk to, like Colton, the guy I'm working on my new books we call the Myths. I've read his stuff before, and we've kind of just been working more and more together with stuff. And I've taken inspiration from what he's done, and just kind of finding my own voice from everything. That's kind of how I think I've done that ever since like middle school, where I see something that someone is doing that I like, and I want to take a part of that personality to add it to mine.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily like fully consuming it, but just like, I don't know. Do you know who Olin Rogers is?
Yes.
So
Oh yeah.
I like him as a person. He's just like anytime he talks to people, whenever I met him once when I was in like high school, he was just so excited to meet every single person. He was never like it never seemed like a chore.
Right.
That was something I wanted to make sure I take with my personality as well. Where it's like, hey, if I'm talking to you, I want to make sure it doesn't feel like a chore. I don't always succeed on that, but like it's just maybe because I'm not mentally there, but I want to make sure people feel valued as well.
I remember the first time I watched Ghost in the Stalls.
Yes, one of the best videos
I
ever.
I was in tears just from the entire skit was
Mhm.
great. It's still. Do you remember Ryan Higa?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
vaguely. I
So
haven't heard that name forever.
yeah, which I haven't watched any of his stuff in a long time, but like I remember him and Olin Rogers were like the
Hmm.
two in that section of like 2010s
Hmm.
where their stuff was just like comedy gold, basically.
Yeah.
And of course, College Humor was getting a lot of traction with some of their stuff. But yeah, I definitely remember that. So speaking of local peers and
Yeah.
all that entails, so you're from the Atlanta, Georgia area,
Correct. Yes. I tell
and
people Atlanta. If you're ever
right,
people outside of Atlanta, they're like, "That's cool." People who are from Atlanta, they're like, "Cool," but where specifically?
right, yeah, yeah.
So
It's the same thing with the Madison County area. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm from the the Huntsville area. Where? So it's
yeah,
just like, but
makes it easier.
yeah. So let's talk about the Georgia comic scene. So I know that you, Deegan Pokers,
Hmm.
I almost said his last name incorrectly.
I
Um,
keep calling him. I keep calling him Touch Cores,
Pucker,
and I know it's not,
yes.
but I think I partially do it just to mess with him at this point.
I think the three of us know each other well enough that that would be the case.
Yeah.
Jason Flowers,
Hmm.
Brian Silverbacks, and who else am I missing from this list?
There's actually it. Georgia Atlanta area is such a big comics community, surprisingly.
Mm,
It's just more secretive about it, I think.
right.
Like you have people like Anderson Carmen, who is my
Uh,
best friend at this point.
DJ Chavez.
DJ Chavez, yes.
Yeah.
He's around, he's awesome. And then you got people who are running indie publisher companies like Akira Brown, who's in Atlanta, and they're doing awesome. But it's just everyone thinks that most of the art people are in Savannah, which for the most part, a lot of them are.
Yeah.
But then you got people around here. Shadia Min, I think I pronounced her last name right. She's around the Atlanta area and she's awesome and she's very supportive. She teaches at the Atlanta SCAD school,
Mm,
but it's a good community of just creators around here. And there's from all levels, from like Paul Jenkins, I think, is in the Atlanta area, and the guy who's like written the Inhumans and Spider-Man and a bunch of Marvel comics, to people like me. I'll use myself as an example where I'm like, I still feel like I'm up and coming, even though I feel like I'm doing pretty well at the same time. I still am learning. I'm still going. I'm still growing. But
uh,
it's a good support system around here.
so funny enough, it's interesting to see how the Atlanta area, which was never really meant to be like an entertainment hub, is
Mm-hmm.
starting to really become it because there's been a lot of movies, specifically a
Yeah.
lot of Marvel movies, and even Tyler
Yeah.
Perry's production company is also from that same area.
Yeah.
But way back, we're going to say at some point in the 90s, there was a studio called Block Noir. And
Mm-hmm.
this is where we get Adam Hughes, Cully Hamner, Tony Harris, Brian Stelfreeze, Jason Pearson.
Yeah.
These are guys that were doing stuff for Dark Horse and Image Comics, and which beforehand they were doing stuff with the big two, depending on the person, but
Yeah.
more times than none, they were all part of this, hub. And of course, they were their own studio. And I want to say that that particular studio ended up closing down sometime after 2010, if
Yeah.
not right at it. But if I remember correctly, Adam Hughes is still living in the Atlanta area.
Oh, that's cool.
Because
Got to see if he wants to hang out one day. I don't know.
good luck.
Hang out.
Yeah. I know that he was at Battlegrounds with because when I heard that Jason was going to be at Battlegrounds for Free Comic Day, I'm just like, at the time period, I had zero plans for Free Comic Day, and I thought I'll go out of state, support Jason, go over there, whatever. Found out that Adam was going to be at the same place, and was just like, okay, I gotta go. And then ended up doing Free Comic Book Day here, and so I actually had a mutual friend do some grunt work, leg work. Took a couple of covers for me to get signed. So
That's
he went over there to do that. And of course, I owe him a commission for the trouble.
That's the perk about being a writer. My commission is just writing a sentence. You did great. It's basically a text. That's all I got to do.
But yeah, it's always interesting to hear about the different scenes that are happening in and around the area. At least with the North Alabama area, there's definitely several people, artist wise, that don't really hear a lot regarding the writers. Definitely not with colorists. So it's really interesting and intriguing to hear about like certain people and where they are geographically in the area. So it's just like, oh well, now I know that this person is over here, and I try to lock this in there.
Well, that's a cool part about this community too. Like, as you talk to more people, like you start realizing the world's a little bit smaller than normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you brought it up, we met each other in Savannah for Savannah Comic-Con.
Yeah.
You and I are not from Savannah.
Nope.
But we are fairly closer to each other from where I live in Atlanta and you live in Huntsville area. It's just, oh, okay, so these people are over here. I met other people at a South Carolina Comic-Con that's lives 30 minutes away from me. I'm like, oh, okay, you're not that far away.
Yeah.
It's just you start running into the same people and you're like, oh, you live here, you live there. And then you meet other people who are like, yeah, I live all the way in Chicago. I'm like, yeah, I'm not anywhere near that. That's cool. He's like, yeah, if
Uh,
you're ever around, come hang out. I'm like, sure.
you ever heard of the My Little Pony artist Andy Price?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so I want to say it was the October after we met each other at Savannah. So
Yeah.
when I went up there to get my badges and stuff like that, and they asked for my last name, and I said that, they handed me his badges. And so, and I completely forgot.
Like, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, I saw that. I'm just like, I'm flattered, but not the same person. And they had to like double check through like a bunch of stuff, and they finally got. And so I actually did introduce myself to him, which I'm pretty sure he was pretty frazzled with just the amount of stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
Which I still follow him on a couple different places. Really, just haven't had the chance to actually like sit down and talk to him. But when I did get to see him at Baltimore, super friendly, which ironically enough, he was actually from this area.
Yeah.
Ironically enough,
it's not funny how that works.
Yeah, actually had a sub box here at Haven. We actually have some of his artwork hanging up here at Haven. So it's really interesting to see some of these. Cully Hamner, for instance, was also from the area as well. So it's really interesting to be like, oh, you like Blue Beetle? Well, guess what? The artist who did him, the Jaime Reyes, era, that was him. And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, it is. Let me show you his other stuff too.
That's so funny.
So, which people didn't realize. Red, he did the artwork for that story, which is still one of my favorite movies ever. Just turn your mind off and watch it.
I think a lot of people, like, I know I thought this way about 5 years ago when I was like wanting to get into comics. So like, well, I got to go where all the comic book people are, which is in New York or Portland or Charlotte. And then as I talk to more people, as you like make friends and do local shows, you're like, no, there's a big group of people where I am at right now. I don't need to go across the nation just to be where the other creators are at.
Yeah.
Like you could do that here. That's the beauty of the internet. Internet has good and bad stuff, but the good part is that the world is a little bit smaller. You can connect with people around while still being in your own community.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Networking is a beautiful thing when it wants to be. But I will say nothing beats the face-to-face in person versus the virtual of it. Which, speaking of Savannah, Spice, how was it? I know it was its first year of ever being a convention, and if I remember correctly, the guys in charge of it were also volunteers or runners of the Savannah Comic-Con.
So one of them, a guy named Avery, was the runner of Savannah Comic-Con whenever we went.
Yeah.
And Avery is one of the nicest people in the world. I was just like chatting with him that time. And we became fast friends at Savannah Comic-Con when I was talking with him. And so we kind of like, stayed in touch. We followed each other on social media. He's like, yeah, if you're ever around, we'll get a bite to eat. And I was like, yeah, ditto, all that. And then I found out he was doing this show. And I was like, well, I know it's a 4-hour drive where I'm at. Let me go. I'll be part of it. I'd love to be part of his first show, or like his first show with him and another guy, I believe, named Roman. And they killed it, honestly. It was just a good place. It was a good community. It was a huge success with the amount of people that showed up. And like, I did well there. I heard a lot of people were like, I did well. This was also a lot of people's first show. So I had people asking me questions like, oh, how many shows have you done? I'm like, this is actually, I don't know, double digits at this point with how many shows I've done. But it's a good place to be. And these guys really cared about the community. They wanted to provide a spot for people to come and sell their stuff and talk to other creatives. And Savannah's just a good place with a bunch of other creators who just like, hey, I want to make comics. I want to do stuff. How do you do this? And they just want to chat. They'll buy stuff as well, but like it's that interaction that a lot of people enjoy. So the show overall, I love it. If they do it again, I will happily be back.
Yeah, I missed out on the opportunity, which there are several different opportunities, Kickstarter stuff included. Uh, that it was just like I knew that this was happening, and by the time that I even think about investing anything financially for it, it's just like, oh
Yeah.
well, no, we've already met our quota with
Yeah.
this or that, and Spice was one of them. And so when I heard about it, I'm just like, I remember talking to Avery when I had checked in for Savannah. Cool dude.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where I was just like, this would be a good time for me to go back to Savannah, and I would be able to do some touristy things that I didn't get to do the last time I was there, which you actually did.
I did not get to do that. We were there.
Didn't you go to the Curiosities Museum or something like that? Was
Not
that you?
Savannah, bro.
Okay.
Not this time around, because we drove up Friday morning.
Okay.
And then I did the show, which was like 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then I hung out for about an hour and a half with everyone. And then I was like, all right, we're driving back home, which was another 4 hours.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you're driving tonight? I'm like, yeah, I didn't really want to pay for a hotel. And I miss my bed. So it was a long day, but it was worth it. Like, there are shows now where I'm like, I'm not going to pay for a hotel, but I still really want to go. That way it's a little bit more financially viable for me. And I want to keep getting my books out there. I want to keep spreading the name and just like make sure people, whenever they see one of my books, they know it's me. Because I'm part of my market. I guess not market. I'm part of my
brand.
Thank you. Like Sidekick for Hire, Prologue, we call them myths. That's all part of it. Like whenever you get those stories, that's what I'm really excited about. Like when people look at that book, they're thinking, wow, Kristian helped make that. That's what I like. They won't look at Spider-Man print or another book that if I wrote for Marvel or DC and be like, wow, Marvel wrote that. And it's like, okay. I like the idea that my name is attached, my face is attached, and people know me, and I can make quality work while also having a quality interaction. So
that definitely makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that it took me a while, and this took several years to understand that I had to start operating not really so much as a businessman, but more of a tradesmith. Because I'm thinking about, well, if a plumber or a carpenter or an electrician is looking at time spent, materials used, services rendered, then I need to start thinking of myself in the same capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, try to do the best work that you possibly can within that given time period. And like obviously we can do the whole "you are your own worst critic," sort of thing. That's a given. But when you're not putting out the best products or the best foot forward regarding yourself as your brand. And social media amplifies that. Unfortunately.
I try to make sure, like my last book before We Call the Myths was about a year ago when it came out. Like Sidekick for Hire issue 5 came out last year, like 1 year ago.
Yeah.
And it was cool. Like it was great. And then I eventually got a trade paperback and the collector's box, and people liked that. But then the whole time I was still working on Myths. I was still working on that book. And it took me a while, and everyone's like, wow, it took you a little bit longer this time than the other one. I was like, well, it's because I want to make sure I keep bringing more quality work. If I'm going to attach my name to it, I want to make sure I'm proud of it. I want to make sure I make it as good, if not the best I can possibly. I want to make sure people get their money's worth. and that it's something that I have no problem being at a convention and being like, hey, this is worth your time and money. Please check it out. If you don't want to, it's totally fine. But I believe in this. I had fun making this. I think you would have so much fun reading this.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the goal.
So, considering that we are talking about we call them myths, so I remember that it was either a Saturday or Sunday night when it was me, you, and Deegan eating at Bridge Street, and you were
Yeah.
talking about this. And so when you had mentioned the pitch, I hadn't seen whatever artwork or anything regarding it. You had mentioned this pitch, and so when you were telling me about this, I was going off of what I've seen from this,
Mm-hmm.
artwork
Yeah.
wise. And so
Different
my
styles.
mind, my mind was kind of stuck that. And so when you showed me the work, I'm like, this looks like if Mignola was doing Adventure Time.
Yeah.
And like it caught me off guard. I enjoy it, but
Yeah.
it still catches me off guard because I'm working off of previous material, which I get you can't always use the same creative team like you would want to, but it was interesting to see this.
Yeah, I like working with a bunch of different artists. Like everyone's a different experience with it. Like I learned so much working with Rick on the Sidekick for Hire. Jimmy doing the colors, so is Veronica doing the colors for the first issue. And then jumped over to Prolong. Completely different art style with Hernan and Damien, who I learned a lot from them about just like, hey, it's okay to add a few more panels to this, or what if we made the colors look like this? What if we changed the direction of where they're talking like this? I was like, okay, I like this. I'm learning from them. And then when I made this one, Myths, Colton and I just kind of kept going back and forth about the story, not like in a bad way, more like, oh, I have this idea. What if we did that? And he's like, oh yeah, oh, we could do this. I'm like, oh no, that's good. And then we could do this. He's like, yeah, I like that. And it worked so well, in my opinion. Like just as it went on.
That's definitely something that Reed and I just keep going back and forth regarding a couple different stuff. Because we obviously have different things that we personally enjoy, but we also have a lot of middle ground that we both not just like with ethos, but just also with like the creative side of it all. And so when I had suggested that to the fact of like, if I know for a fact, if I did this pitch and I'm doing it the way that I'm drawing stuff now, I feel like things might be a little stiff. Just because of just how the plot's laid out, how the scenes go boom, boom, boom. And it's just like, there's no way possible that I can continue doing what I'm currently doing as this. I'm about to ask your blessing if I can do things differently. So he goes, well, what are you looking for? And so I'm just like, I'm personally getting inspired by the guy who did all of the art direction for Metal Gear Solid. Just because it's military and all this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, he's able to make because you're dealing with like a lot of like technical straight lines and all this sort of stuff. But the guy who does the artwork for it, Yoji Shinkawa, I believe that's his last name. I can never remember his last name to save my life. I just remember his first name's Yoji. I've seen videos of him drawing the stuff, and it's just like, dude's pulling out a brush and he's making the straightest of lines without a ruler, and I'm like, wizard. And seeing that, it's just like, I want to be able to create that kind of motion with the tools that I'm currently using. And of course, Daniel Warren Johnson is just like another that I constantly learn from. For every single project he puts out, I'm always learning something from it, whether it's the writing side or the art side of it. And of course, Johnson's also a favorite. Johnson's also a favorite with Reed as well. Mignola being another one. And so it's just like, there's been a lot of talks and stuff like that and trying to learn from it. And the previous pitch that we did, Lilywood, there were definitely some things where I had to. Well, it was my first time working with Reed, so I had to adhere and hold back on a couple different stuff regarding. Uh, this is something I had joked about with Reed so much was the amount of
Yeah.
panels per page. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh god. So it's just like
I mean, it comes with the growing pains of everything.
it
Like
does.
I like working with Colton, there was certain things where I was like, if I feel strongly about something, I will tell you. If but I want you to give me your opinion on something. If you feel strongly about something, let me know. And it kind of worked in the favor. Like we can't for myths, I'll give you a little bit of backstory on that one as well. Like we originally when we were talking because we read each other's stuff, we were like, oh cool. And we became friends on Twitter. And as we chatted a bit more, I was like, all right, what do you want to work on? Instead of me pitching you a story, what is something you want to work on? He's like, I want to make a monster book. Like, and he had this idea with this other character in Sacramento Stone, which is like the main character of the story. But he was a bounty hunter who hunted down these monsters. I was like, cool. Love the name. I don't really want to do a bounty hunter story. Like, it's just not, I don't care about bounty hunters that much. It's cool and all that. I think it's a good one off, but I don't see how I can like this character if they're just hunting down crazy monsters.
Mhm.
And something killing the children is out. I'm like, I get my bounty hunter fill from that. I can't do something better than James Tinian does on that. And I was like, okay, what if instead of hunting the monsters, like it's a society where the monster's kind of hidden and they're trying to help them? That kind of working out. And he was like, okay, I like that. I was like, all right. So what if it's like a detective agency almost? He's like, okay, cool. Because once again, that's the Ed Brubaker stuff. A lot of his stuff is crime noir things. And I
He
wanted to
has
take a vibe of that.
he has the monopoly on
Yeah.
noir stories.
And
It's
I wanted to take a piece of that as well and be like, I want to do like a fun version of that. And I feel like as we talked a little bit more, and I was like, okay, and we chat a little bit more. I'm like, hey, I'm writing this. There needs to be another character. I was like, what if we did a buddy cop story almost? He was like, okay, cool. And as I'm like working on it, I think literally the next day, he's like, what if one of them's a robot? And I said, sure, let's go for it. I think that's awesome with the way that the creatures are and stuff like that. I'm like, it makes sense for the story, like in our world, like how it happens. And
yeah.
then as the story kind of came on and kept going, we got the vibe, we got the feeling of the story. And then there would be times where I started officially writing the full script. And I was like, if you don't like something, you need to let me know. Okay.
Mm.
He was like, yeah, totally. And there was a few things here and there where he was just like, yeah, I mean, like we could do that if you want. I said, it doesn't sound like you like this. Just tell me you don't like it and we can change it. I don't have to die for this.
Right.
Like, there are parts of the story that I'm like, I really need this in the story for it to help. He's like, cool. But it took time.
There is definitely something about the communication factor when it comes to creative teams that you don't really realize how beneficial it is. And that's something that I'm really counting my blessings with when it comes to working with Reed is the fact that we're able to bounce ideas. Recently, I was hitting a brick wall regarding this pitch with a couple different things. It's just like, I'm trying to work on this. And it's just like, I set deadlines on myself to put myself accountable to how much I'm putting in. So it's just like, there is zero reason why I should be doing this because I know I can get this done. It's, and it was one of the things that he told me was just like, don't even don't even bother working on it. Go do something for you, clear out your brain and start, tomorrow, which typically in those moments is where it's just like I'm going to go outside and try not to get sunburned and all this sort of stuff. And it happens
Yeah.
to be the 1 week where it has been raining day after day after day. So it's just like,
Yeah.
so all my plans to like go hiking or anything like that, which I would have normally had done, out the window unless I decide to go swimming in the river and
Yeah.
trying to get electrocuted in the process. uh, but considering that we're talking about, you know, your Kickstarter projects that you have done, which you have done
Mhm.
several,
Mhm.
and as far as I know, every single one of them successful. You've hit your markers.
Surprisingly so, yes.
Yeah.
Some of the first few probably shouldn't have, but oh, got a lot of
Let's,
good friends and people who want to support.
which is great, and it's always a
Yeah.
good thing. But let's definitely talk about Kickstarter for those that just happen to be watching that have never done anything regarding Kickstarter and they want to start their own thing. What are the ups, the downs, things to look out for? Any sort of monicum of advice from your experience with the series, a couple different series that you've done so far.
Yeah, I've helped out on a few other people's Kickstarters and looked it over and said this would work, this wouldn't work. And like most of it, I don't know. A lot of it is making sure that you have enough. If you're doing a first Kickstarter, make sure you have enough to show off. Kickstarter, like a lot of people are like, oh, I have all my money back. And it's really not that way. Like a lot of the books that I put up, I have put in a few $1,000s in already. And this is to help me get over the edge, maybe get some of my money back, but it is to help finish paying the art cost and the printing cost. So that is the goal for my Kickstarters. And it's a hard balance because sometimes people are like, well, I need to make all my money back from it. It's like, yeah, I think you should. I think that'd be great. But if you're a fairly new creator, people don't know you. People don't like, they don't know if you're actually going to accomplish it. Because unfortunately, there's more Kickstarters out there that just have hit funding and then nothing has happened.
Yeah.
And that trust, once that's broken, that's hard to regain and it affects other creators. So I try to make sure that everyone who gets one of my books, that they get it. And if there's any issues, they can let me know and I'm going to solve it to the best of my abilities. And if there's any delays, I let them know too. I'm like, hey, this is going to be like, we call the miss. It was supposed to be shipped out last month.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it took a little bit longer for me to get the books in. There were some issues with the printers kind of changing up. And I was like, hey, I just need to know what's going on. Let me know. And they kept me communicated. And because of that, I was communicating with the Kickstarter backers. I was like, hey, just so you know, I am not getting the books until late April. And that's also when I was going on my honeymoon. I was like, I would love to send these books out immediately, but I'm not going to do that to my wife. I'm
Right.
like, I want to spend time with her. I'm not going to bring these books with me to Chicago and New Orleans on our honeymoon and like, hey, I'm going to do this for a little bit and then we can go out. That'd be stupid.
Yeah.
So I communicated with them like, there's going to be a delay, not going to be shipped out until May. And tomorrow I drop off the last like 50 books at the post office. So people will be getting it throughout the week. And
So how many,
it's a lot.
rough estimate, how many people backed, we call them myths?
200.
Okay.
So, and there were, I think it was like 197 on the Kickstarter, but I had about 5 or 6 other people after that communicated with me and they were like, hey, I missed the deadline. I'd still like the back. And
Mm.
so I had them do some extra stuff on there. So I counted
Okay.
to it.
So roughly 200 people with your most recent one versus your very first one, Psychic for Hire. I'm
There was
guessing.
about, it was 140 people, I believe.
Okay. So
But
there's obviously been a progression in terms of like
yes,
you're getting X amount of people coming in. Now, I definitely have been seeing a lot lately in terms of veterans in the industry trying to do their own, create their own stuff, doing it through Kickstarter. And you would think that a
Mhm.
lot of these guys would get the backing almost immediately. And for some of them, that is the case, and others not so much. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much of that is just because they haven't done a lot of indie stuff. And so if they're trying to do their first create their own, they're not getting the traction like you would with so on and so forth. So
I in my this is an opinion from my own looking. This is from my own perspective, and I feel like I have a little bit of more of a say that I have a little bit more justification of what I say because I
mm,
do have a business degree. I went to college to run a business, and
right.
making comics is running business. Kickstarter right now is oversaturated. It is. I believe a lot of these veterans know what they're doing, and a lot of them hit their goal, but they're also expecting more than their goal, and they're not getting it. And it has to do with the fact that there are so many Kickstarters happening
Mm,
that it's becoming too much. And it's not even just indie creators, because indie creators have been using it for years. It's the fact that you see DC, Boom, Image,
yeah.
they're all using it right now for things that they can fund themselves. One of the biggest comic book Kickstarters that came out with last few years was Berserk
Yeah.
with Matt Kent and Keanu Reeves. That book did not need to be kickstarted. Boom Studios could have released it and been like, it's got Keanu Reeves' name on it, and it would have sold and still sell it. They're selling it in stores right now.
Yeah.
But
Didn't that drop like literally during COVID? Like the very first issue of that? Or
possibly
was it the year before? Because it
it
was around that time
it
period.
it was like right. I think it was the year after COVID.
Okay.
So a year after like the official pandemic started.
Which I won't I don't know. This is probably me just shooting off the hip, but at some point my brain is just kind of like Keanu could have funded this, the entire
He
thing,
didn't.
and it would have.
He didn't even. Yeah, well, that's the thing. He didn't even need to fund it.
Yeah,
Boom Studios could have released it, but Matt used Kickstarter before, and he knew what he was doing. And he's like, we can make more money like this, and
mm,
give people like an exclusive release as it's going. And then once those exclusive ones are released, we can do it through the market, the direct market. And they got money from both sides, which business wise, it's smart. Short term, long
yeah,
term wise, it screws over newer creators and stuff like that. Because whenever everyone's like, "Oh, sorry, I gave like $150 for this comic, I can't give you $10, $20 for your comic. I'm out of money. Sorry."
yeah,
I'm like, people can spend what they want. That's totally up to them. But it doesn't breed a lot of room for like newer chances. And that's kind of what Kickstarter was for a while. And like Zoop, I've looked into it.
hmm
I don't think it's a bad platform. It just doesn't have the reach that Kickstarter has. And I don't know how the best way to go about that. And then crowdfunder is something, and then the other
Indiegogo's
one,
the other one. Yeah,
Indiegogo, is one that I don't want to use because it just doesn't seem like they really care as long as they get money.
yeah. Uh, I think
So,
from everything that I've seen with Zoop, it's mainly aimed for people who are technically veterans in the industry, and they're trying to dip their toes into the creator own side, and they
mhm,
want to release their own stuff. Because
yeah.
there's been a couple of books that we have here at the store that we have backed through Zoop. One of them took a lot longer to get than the other,
Yeah.
but I definitely see Zoop definitely working more towards the veterans of the industry versus with Kickstarter. And it's not to put a black mark on Kickstarter whatsoever, because it definitely has its prime, its purpose, and it makes sense within the, at least on the comic side of things.
Hmm.
Uh, it's definitely something that it really kind of begs a lot of questions regarding uh, A-listers in the industry using it through,
Yeah.
Image or DC or whatever, and it's just like, you guys more likely would have people would have, if you had posted this in previews, people would have signed up for it and they would invest in it and they would get
I
it. So
mean,
it's just kind of
to a certain degree, I guess. Like, I feel like previews isn't as accessible as Kickstarter to a lot of
mm,
comic book fans. Like, it's still like, if you know how to use previews, if you know how to talk to a comic book store about like requesting a certain one, like, is there an app for previews? Do you know that?
I want to say yes, but I don't know exactly. They obviously have a website and they still do make the big book
Yeah, but
for
like that's
$4.99 coming out every month, and it's that thick. Uh, I still kind of trust that kind of over the website personally.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. If it's that thick, you're asking comic book readers to be like, hey, pay $5 for a book this long that you have to read to find out if you can get a book for this long for the same
Or
price.
several.
Or
Just it doesn't
several,
have to be
yeah.
the
But you're
single.
asking them
Yeah.
to read so much of stuff they don't really want to read too much of, like, all right, I'm looking for a Batman comic. Let me go through this. All right, Adam, Barbarella, uh,
Well,
Berserk, Barbarian,
with
and it's just like
with previews
it's just
that
not very accessible for newer readers, and that's kind of my issues with that.
so Marvel and DC have their own separate previews books, which are thinner.
It's even worse.
Yeah. They have their own separate thing because they don't want it to get lost within the bigger book.
Yeah,
Even though they technically do show whatever stuff like advertisements or whatever.
yeah,
Obviously, on the flip side of the same book, you do have the the statues, the toys, blah blah blah, merchandise, side of it,
yeah.
which obviously DC will obviously do their thing with McFarlane and so on and so forth.
But like, that's not. I'm looking to see like newer readers or people who are like casual readers.
Right?
Like that's not it's not a readily available thing for casual readers. Like
Yeah.
for my comic Sidekick for Hire, I had ideas when I first started being like, oh, I'll go 10 issues, I'll go 20 issues, like everyone does with their first comic. But that's just not accessible for people. I realized that because I already had the first 5 issues planned out, but I was like, that's just not a possible thing.
Hmm.
Like, especially for trying to get people to keep reading and all that. We call them myths 4 issues long. I made it 1 issue shorter than Sidekick for Hire without like compromising any of the story. But with that promise, it makes it more accessible for people.
Right.
And it just, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I think people have used for a while because that's all they can use, but it's not the most ideal thing. And long term wise, it's not helping out as much.
Mm.
Like, people are like, well, you can go on the website. And it's like, yeah, I could do that. But it's unless like all the books are there, people don't really want to go on there. And I know for Previews World, it's like they technically have all the books, but like DC's a little bit different. If you type the user interface
Yeah.
is not very user friendly,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So like I tried showing my wife who's not very into comics. I'm like, see if you can find this comic on here. She's like, I'm not doing that. This looks like and she's like, I'm gonna look at my Discogs for records. I'm like, that looks a way more accessible.
Yeah. I won't disagree. There's been a couple of times where I've tried to look up something on Previous World,
Mhm.
their website, where it's just like you type in one thing incorrectly in the search bar, you're not going to find it. And so it's
Yeah.
just like
And then like
Google search is so much more conducive, but yet it is 10 times bigger
yeah.
with what you search for versus Previous World. So it really doesn't make any
Kickstarter's
sense.
website, they do a pretty good job of being like, hey, here's all the books that you saved. Here's all the books that you backed. Here's all
Mhm.
the books that you backed that failed, unfortunately. And then you can actually mark it like, oh, did you get this one? Yes. Did you like it or did you not like it? and you go through it, and it's like, hey, we saw that you backed this book from this person. Do you want to back another book from them?
Mm.
And it's like, okay, cool. They make it so accessible, even through their app. That would be a cool thing, like if Previews World or like a comic book store were to do an app like that. And it's like, hey, you bought this book.
Yeah.
You bought this like Spider-Man book. Have you checked out this Spider-Man book? Or I don't know, you bought Something's Killing the Children. Have you seen World Tree by James Tynion? You might really like that one. And like, there's got to be something out there. I'm not smart enough to make an app yet because I want to make my own stories. But there's got to be something that benefits comic book stores, comic book creators, and the readers all at once. But some of these big businesses are like, well, we don't want to do that because we're already using our stuff. So why do we have to?
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely.
Sorry, my anti-capitalism.
No.
Agenda popped out.
Even that. It's really not even that. Because I definitely agree that there can always be better, more conducive. Because I mean, we're already in 2024. You would think that there would be better, more conducive ways to do certain things, and that's not always the case. But
and also,
I find it interesting, and this is a conversation that I've had with several people. So you're mentioning Tynan. Him and Donny Cates both are the two writers I can never get into their stuff, no matter how many times I try to sit down and read their stuff. And it's just like, well, I try to give it the benefit of the doubt. Now, Cates tries to be the emo kid of the party, and that's his angle. He does in his space. Yeah. Well, it would also be nice.
I could do it.
It would also be nice if he wasn't so meta that he didn't vanish during Vanish. But with Tynan, I know he's got good stuff because I see people buying his stuff all the freaking time. Yeah. And so I've tried reading Something Killing the Children. I've tried reading House of Slaughter. I've tried reading his run with Justice League. I've tried reading World Tree. And it's just like, I want to get into his stuff, but it is so hard for me to have that point where it's just like, yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm in it, because I don't have that experience with their other contemporaries. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes
Scott Snyder, Tom King, Tom Taylor.
Can I be honest about something?
I'm pretty sure one of those guys, if not all three of them, you don't like.
Nope.
I've seen this. Like I really have.
My guy that I like, I understand that people like him, and I get why he sells a lot, but I just don't like anything he's done. Grant Morrison.
And Morrison is definitely one of those where you can go back and forth with people.
Yeah. I just like him. This is gonna show me in a not so great light, but I've read his stuff. I'm like, man, this guy is so smart. I don't understand anything he's saying. I'm so dumb, and it makes me feel dumb, and I don't want to read it now. And like, that is the worst thing. That's the worst I'll ever say about Grant Morrison. It's like, hey, you're making stuff that's really smart and makes me feel stupid, so I'm not going to read it. So congratulations.
Who was it that?
But I'm not his target market.
Who was it that wrote The Boys?
Garth Ennis.
Garth Ennis. Okay.
Ennis.
So I can't read The Boys. I have tried, and it's one of those where it's just, yeah, watching it is different than reading it. It is. It's so much more tame watching it than it is reading it. But here's
the really important thing about.
Well, I was simply going to say that with Ennis, I love his war comics. Yeah. Like he definitely he does his homework basically when it comes to these books, and I really do enjoy reading. Like the Lion and the Eagle that came out through Aftershock before it went belly up was probably my favorite war comic that he has put out in a while. But all the other stuff that he's done, Punisher, when he did that was not bad. Preacher was enjoyable, but I cannot read The
I
Boys.
think has to do with the fact that he came off of like Preacher, Punisher, and all that. And
Mm.
then this is the important part of having a good collaborator, in my opinion. The Boys is popular show, comic, regardless. I'm not a big fan of the comic, but I do feel that I think it came out through Dynamite, right?
I
The
want to
Boys.
say, yeah, it did come out through Dynamite.
They basically, it felt like they basically said like, "Hey, what do you want to do? Do whatever. Sure, we'll put that in the comic. Yeah, do it. You did Preacher, you did Punisher. Go ahead, man." And like, there wasn't really like an editor to be like, I'm pretty sure he had an editor, but I don't like. Maybe someone would be like, do you need to put this in here? Should this be in here? Can you
It's
tame it a bit?
it's
Just
kind
like
of
just
like,
reel it back just one step. That's all we need.
yeah, it's kind of like how some of the stuff that ended up passing editorial with uh Mark Millar's Ultimates. There was some stuff that
Yeah.
they really flew under the radar regarding that, and of course, Brian K. Vaughan, when he did Ex Machina, there was a couple of things that definitely flew under the radar that would not pass
Yeah.
a lot of stuff today. But yeah, so The Boys is definitely one where it was just like, I don't think the editor really even cared. They just saw, hey, top A-listers, I'm just going to say yes to everything and get my check at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But all that aside, with our side tangents of writers,
Well, like, I think it's a good point of like saying what my inspirations are and just like
yeah. I mean,
collaborators.
yeah. And I totally get it that there are a lot of people that love Donny Cates and Tynan, and I like seeing the fact that they are buying their stuff and they're enjoying it, which is totally good and fine. I'm just waiting for that one book, which I know that he put out the Universal Studios Dracula. I haven't read that yet, and it's definitely one that at some point I'll get around to reading it.
I want to get to their point where like James Tinian, like I like their writing, don't get me wrong. But I like the business savvy part of it as well. Like for Tinian, he has his own company now.
Tiny Onion.
Working. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he has his own people working for him. And he's like, my job is to do such a good job at writing and that people still follow my stuff and people like me enough that now I'm getting paid enough and making sure everyone else is getting paid as well. Like, I want to get to that point. That is my goals and aspirations. Like, I don't know how I'll get there. I don't know if I ever do, but like, I want to shoot for that level, if not higher. Like, everyone's like, oh, you're going to be the next Stan Lee. I was like, I don't want to be Stan Lee. I want to be Christian. I want people to look at me or other people be like, man, you're going to be the next Christian. Or like, they look at other people and be like, you're going to be the next Christian.
Yeah.
That is my goal. Because now people are like, oh, you could be the next like Donny Cates or James Tinian or Scott Snyder, whatnot, Chip Zdarsky. I was like, yeah, that's cool. But I want to be at that level, if not higher, and people being like, you could be the next Kristian Herrera.
Yeah. And that's something that I've talked in early episodes with the show, is the fact of like, everyone's got inspirations regarding, music, visual art, what have you. And it's great to have those inspirations, but there's a giant difference between being an imitator and then being a inspiration for the next wave of people. And I've definitely seen a shift that's happened regarding the creative sides of it. A lot of Distillery, for instance, coming up and seeing that shift of like the creator own side of it, and how guys like Snyder and Tula Latoy and Becky Cloonan, which surprisingly Somna ends up getting an Eisner nomination, that was not on my bingo card whatsoever. Like it was an interesting book when it came out, but the fact that that's getting an Eisner nod, I'm just like, we're back in the 90s with Basic Instincts and all this stuff. So it's interesting to see, that pop up Ghost Machine, with what those guys are doing,
Mhm.
which we actually had Jeff Johns on the Thursday night show a couple episodes back. It
Oh,
was really,
nice.
really awesome to which we were only supposed to have them for like 30 minutes, and they ended up saying an hour.
Nice.
They didn't have to. Him and Jason Fabok both. But it was really cool just to sit, listen, and pick their brain about just all things Ghost Machine and all that stuff. Which I know that there's a video out there. I just haven't found it yet, but more on the business side of their approach to it, because it's all creatives that have definitely been a part of the industry for the last 20, 30 years. And so it's
Mhm.
interesting to see these guys, even though yes, they are marketing their stuff and printing it through image,
Yeah.
to understand more about the business side of it, and to the fact of, this is what we believe in, this is the product that we want to put out. And that's
Yeah.
definitely kind of going back.
This is very admirable, and that's something that I'm trying to do as well.
Yeah, it goes back to your brand. It goes back
Yeah.
to me looking at myself as a tradesmith and operating under that mindset,
Mhm.
which I would argue to say any person that is doing comics does need to get a degree in business,
Yeah.
because
I'm
that,
take a business class
yeah,
to like look more into it. I mean, marketing's a big thing. People are like, "Oh, I just got to market my comic book." It's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, like if you make a superhero comic, there's so many superhero comics. How are you going to market it?
yeah,
What's going to be different?
yeah,
And I think that's the thing a lot of people are forgetting. They think that, oh, if I just make a comic, people will come. I was like, yeah, people will check it out and buy it. But if you want to be successful, you got to learn how to use the market to your advantage. You got
mhm,
to see what works, what doesn't. And sometimes that means doing the exact same thing as other people and then finding out a different way of doing it.
yeah,
That is an important thing. You won't know unless you try it. I'm still learning. I'm still looking at everything. I'm still trying to do everything that everyone else has done, but I'm also looking for new ways of trying things out. I'm a writer in this world. I can't do commissions. I can't do prints. I don't want
well,
to do prints.
you could pull a Tom King and do those stick figure
See,
commissions.
I've done a few commissions like that for one of my Kickstarters, and it was cool. But like when I'm at a convention, I'm not going to draw things down. I want to talk to people. I was like, okay, so how do I do that? My new table setup, like I'm doing a new convention table setup now,
Mhm,
where it's a little bit more friendly to that, where I want to make it feel like you're going to a pub, you're talking to a bartender, you're
mhm,
chatting a bit. You're like, oh, hey, I want to check this out. It's like, oh yeah, it's really good. And I wanted to feel like where people are like, it's a regular. I was like, oh, hey, this is the place I like to go because I want to check out what new things you got. Let me see. Yeah, I'll get that. I'll tell
mhm.
my friends to come check this out. That's a vibe I want to go for. So I need to market myself as that. That's part of the reason why I wear bandanas too. Otherwise, I'm just gonna, well, not right now, but look like every other dark hair bearded guy, and just like it's just like the bandana just gives me that little extra bit to stand out because people are like, "You look familiar." I was like, "Yeah, I wear bandanas at almost every show. I wear different headbands, and it helps."
uh, oh crap! I think that was I can't remember if that was you or if it was Deegan that had made the joke of the fact of like, you go to an artist alley and every person has glasses, a beard, they're all wearing black clothing. Can you tell them apart? So it's the bandana.
Yeah, it's me. I think it was like 2 years ago, sitting at MomoCon, ironically. And I looked around. I'm like, hmm, everyone's got a black hat and beard, and so did I. And I was just like, oh, this is what it's like making it. I just look like everyone else.
Yeah. Uh, and one of the things that, which you talked about, like a change up within the table set, that was something that when I was tabled next to Reed at Baltimore, I noticed that he
Mhm.
had a uh, very portable drafting table. So whenever he was getting any sort of commission work or needed to sign something, quick remark,
Yeah,
whatever, he was able to do it that right then and there without breaking his back.
yeah.
And super lightweight and all this sort of stuff. And so I had messaged him sometime later. I'm just like, hey, not to, totally bug you, but where exactly did you get that? And so
Yep.
send me the link. And so now that I've got that with me, and it's been probably my favorite Christmas present I ever gave to myself,
Hmm.
that has been my staple for my table now.
And
And
that's what I recommend for people. Just talk to your neighbors, see what works, what doesn't.
yeah.
There's parts of my table that I saw other people doing. And I was like, I like that. I'm gonna make a version of like that for
Mm,
myself, and I'm using it in a way where it's like, oh, I saw someone else using this, and now I'm stealing this to use it like this, which is a little bit different, but you see where the inspiration is from, and it's
mhm.
just like you do that by talking to your neighbors and not gatekeeping and feel feeling free to be like, oh yeah, this is how I do it. This is how I use Square. This is the information I put on here. This is how I distribute things. This is how I make marks of like what I'm selling, what I'm not. Here's where the markets are good. Here's where like my punk comic will sell crazy, but here's where my sad comic will sell way better. Here's where my comics won't sell at all. It's just it's things to know like that.
Yeah. And that's, gosh, I'm kind of glad that at least, if not just on the comic side, but also on the convention side, where the old school boys club gatekeeping as is starting to diminish
Yeah,
as the decades are rolling in. I'm kind of glad that everything is a lot more free and open, and I'm starting to see a lot more not white males in the industry, and to see them often at conventions. And so it's just
yeah,
like, I'm so glad that comics is for everyone, and
yeah,
everyone can do their thing with it, whether it's coloring, whether it's lettering, whether
yeah.
it's doing the covers or interiors, whatever. And I'm glad that we're in this point in the 21st century that
It's where it's more
was
readily.
near impossible in the 20th. Even though you had those people, they had to
Mhm.
fight tooth and nail just to get their name out, or they had to use someone else or under a ghost name,
Yeah,
basically. uh,
I can. I can't speak for anybody who's people of color or anything like that. It's just it is nice knowing that I can. I like working with everyone. Like it's a cool thing, and it's nice not having the same white dudes. Like I'm a white dude, so this sounds like the same of everything. I'm half Mexican, so I get a somewhat of a free pass every once in a while. But like Colton and I were talking about it because Colton is another white dude.
mm,
And we're like, yeah, we just don't want another like we don't want just like another white dude in the main character comic.
mm,
Like it's fine every once in a while, but it's just like so many more people out in the world. There's so many cool things. I brought up a few other people that are in Atlanta, like Shadia, who I believe is Colombian. She's awesome.
mm.
And then Akira, who's doing her own like indie publishing. She's a black woman, and they're doing awesome. It's just it's nice seeing different perspectives and seeing how cool people are doing. And it helps to bring other people up through it.
Yeah. Which, like I said earlier, I'm just, comics are for everyone. Uh,
Mhm.
may not be for anyone, but they're definitely for everyone. Uh, and, and I'm also loving the fact that there's more to comics, at least in America, uh, than just tights and capes.
Yeah.
I'm loving the fact that, because independent comics are, and of course most of this has been, the rescinding of the Comic Code Authority doing a stranglehold on the industry.
Yeah.
But like, I'm loving the fact that uh, like last year, uh, I'm starting to get into French comics and European comics, and so I've
Hmm.
been slowly trying to pick certain things here and there, and just learning more about that. I've seen some of these guys in Heavy Metal magazine, but like I never
Yeah.
really sat to think about it, and
Yeah.
so
There's way more out there than people know of.
yeah, and of course the industry is completely different in that they are they literally just put out a book. They're not doing
Yeah.
individual. Well, some of them are, but most times they're not. They're not doing individual issue. They're putting out a straight up book. The publishing company and their editors have a lot of belief into the product that they're putting out. Whereas if you try doing this here in the States, it is the luck of the draw if you actually get to
Yeah.
that point, which is what's crazy about Brubaker. He's not putting out individual issues. He's putting out like a whole novel with Sean Phillips, and so
Hmm.
which all of those crime books have been amazing.
Yep.
I haven't read all of them yet, like the Reckless series. I did read Night Verses
Hmm.
recently, which was fun. Um, but yeah, and so it's. I remember when someone recommended me to read Black Sad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they're like, it's like Zootopia, but not. I'm like, oh, I love Zootopia, and I go and I read. I'm like, this is not like Zootopia.
Yeah.
But it's been really cool to see, this side of sequential art and visual
Mhm.
storytelling as a whole, and that yes, you can do this. So it's been really cool to see that. But
Yeah.
tangent aside, what are your plans for 2024? Whether it's conventions, comics, what have you?
Uh, for the rest of the year, I got a few other conventions. I always announce it on social media. Uh, right now, like I'm still gonna do some self-publishing stuff, but I'm also what am I doing? I'm trying to pitch more stuff around. I just don't like waiting around for other people. I'm
Yeah.
hoping to maybe show off some more stuff for issue 2 of We Call the Myths, but I just got to get issue 1 out in the world. I'm working on some other comics that I feel weird talking about them if I don't have like more to show. Like
Mhm.
Myths, I had to have like something more tangible to show people before we had, and we've been working on it since like 2022, like
Yeah.
fall 2022. So I don't know. I didn't tell anybody until summer of 2023. I'm like, hey, I'm working on something cool. Like, check this out. Stuff like that. And it took forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Uh,
kind of, I'll be around Georgia, Chattanooga area um, for this year, and then going full throttle next year with even more shows and hopefully multiple books.
mhm. Are you doing Heroes Con or Baltimore?
Yep. Not Baltimore. I'll be doing
Okay.
Heroes.
Okay.
But yeah, and then I'll be doing Dragon Con, Chattanooga. I got MomoCon this coming up weekend, so it'll be fun.
So I've heard within the last maybe 2, if not 3 years, that Dragon Con, even though it's kind of been like a 4-day frat party,
Mhm.
that it's really starting to push back into the comic creatives and
I think
people heading up to the artist alley actually,
yeah,
and yeah,
I think it's yeah. Vendors are cool, but a lot of times it just feels like stuff, and I think people are realizing that for some of the other things, it's just like it's stuff. Like you can get cool books, cool deals. So I have statues behind me, as you can see, of but like after a while, you're like, I just want something different. I want something new,
Mhm.
and you're only going to get that from actual creators too. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. I love it. I love Dragon Con. It's been one of my favorite shows, even when I just attended rather than tabled.
Heroes is definitely one that I would love to table at.
Mm.
For
Yeah,
some
you won't
reason,
make a lot of money, which
I
is
yeah yeah I've heard that. Which if I remember correctly, Dan Warren Johnson is actually going to be at Heroes this year, so I know that he's.
no, that's cool.
Uh, I don't think he's going to be doing commissions per se, but I know that he's going to be signing a lot of stuff and just you know at his table,
Yeah,
basically 2, if not out of the 3 days. But it's definitely a convention that if I don't get to table it, I would love to go just to go because I've heard a lot of
it's
good
just
stuff about it.
it's a fun hangout place, especially for a lot of comic
Yeah,
creators. Like I said, you're not going to make a lot of money unless you're doing original art or like commissions and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's just
Uh,
a fun show to hang out.
which I kind of experienced that with Baltimore, was just the fact of like, I get that it is a big convention and it was
Yeah.
hard for me to make table from it. And of course, having to deal with two different unions regarding the table setup was
Yeah.
nuts. But
Yeah.
the networking and the camaraderie of that was like second to none.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see that from that convention, and also kind of get the same kind of feeling when I was at Savannah 2 years ago. It's just like,
Mhm.
if a convention that's smaller than the Huntsville Expo and a convention twice the size of the Huntsville Expo are having this expectation, then it's just like, this is something that we, which I'm not saying that I don't feel that at the expo. I definitely do.
Yeah. Oh, I
Uh,
love the Huntsville Expo. Like I did it 1 year. Obviously, I couldn't do it this year because I got married, but
right.
it was so good. Like it was nice being there and seeing a lot of people who are making comic, or like some people are making comics and other people are like, I'm just interested in reading more comics. And it was
Yeah.
it was great. It was just lovely seeing. So
Of course,
I hope you come back
you
next
had
year.
prime real estate. You were like right there at the door.
I mean, was I? Yeah, it was pretty good.
I lucked out getting the same spot that I did last year.
Hmm.
I did feel that the blocking off whenever they're trying to set up the individual whatever, for some reason I felt like it was narrower. For some reason, I don't
Hmm.
know why, and I just had this constant uh spidey sense going off with like, if I scoot back any farther, I feel like I'm about to hit the person behind me.
Yeah,
So like, I was anchoring myself at my table the entire time, and I was trying to be respectful for the people behind me. But it was, gosh, last year and this year have been fantastic at the
yeah.
expo. And
You gotta let me
right,
know when signups are open for Huntsville.
I do know for a fact that it's going to be back at the end of April next year. I think it's like the 25th through 27th.
Cool.
I think that's the last weekend of April, but that's where
Hmm.
it's going to be basically at. And it has now increased from the South Hall and then adding the East Hall as well.
Nice. Yeah, they
So,
deserve
which
it.
it should have happened technically this year, if we're, if we're
Yeah,
sitting
I'm
back and
not.
kind of being honest about it. But what's happened has happened, and we're all happy. But I'm definitely glad that we are expanding
Yeah.
and adding in this area. I'm just hoping that we don't end up in the same situation with what happened on Saturday, which was, there was a top of the expo. There was a monster truck rally happening that weekend. So the
Nice.
arena was nothing but like roaring engines and smell of diesel coming straight down through that area. And then there was a marathon that morning in downtown, and then a hot wings festival in the parking right next to it. So it
I would have eaten wings, selling comics, signing it with like hot
dude,
sauce. It would be great.
downtown was at a standstill. There was just no way
Lovely.
possible for you to get it because
Hmm.
traffic was so backed up. And then some friends that were living in Birmingham came up to the expo, and they went to see me table, and they were telling me about the coffee shop that's probably not even 5 minutes away. They were just
Hmm.
like, man, the people working behind the counter, they were so pissed off. You could tell none of them were happy because of just how packed everything was. And it's just
Yeah.
like, you could tell they were done with
Yeah.
everything. I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't
Yeah.
help that. But yeah, which you could not have expected all of that crap to happen that weekend, but it ended up
Yeah.
happening. It was still a banger. I feel like the noise threshold on Saturday was not as violent as it
Hmm.
was last year, so I was able to have like a conversation while straining my ears, which
Yeah.
was good.
Like I said, let me know. I'm trying to keep up to date. I would love
Yeah,
to come back again next year.
yeah. The moment that I get any sort of email regarding signups, I will let you know about that. So for sure.
Thank you.
Uh, Before we end off today, we're going to have a little segment of brevity, which is words of wisdom and getting into comic writing.
From me.
Yes, from
Uh,
definitely not from me.
I guess like look at other people's scripts. You can't make your own thing until you see what other people are making. So
Mhm.
read other people's works, try to read the scripts, and then write it based off of that. That's your best way of going about it.
Yeah, and that was something that shocked a lot of people when I was talking to them about just how the process of the collaboration process, and it's just like it's basically the writer technically writes out what looks like a screenplay, and then you
Mm-hmm.
operate that per panel and whatever is going on, and that blew people's minds when I was
Yeah.
explaining how that is, and I was just like, which
I
depending
always
on
show like if people want to see scripts, I could show it to them. My scripts are kind of just directly for artists.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, like the scripts that I get from Reed basically kind of look like a screenplay to an extent, um, unless there is something that he writes down in the description of whatever panel, and I'm like, "Are you sure?"
Mhm.
Sort of thing. Like, you sure
Yeah.
you don't want to do it this way? Sort of thing. But at the same time, it's just like I kind of think about the writer not just as a screenwriter, but also the producer and videographer. And then the artist basically is the camera.
Yeah.
That
Director
is,
of
yeah,
photography. So yeah.
yeah. The camera and the guy with the boom mic that's trying not to
Mhm.
dip it down by accident in frame.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel like at least the interior artist is, and the colors and the letterer are just the sound
It's
effects and visual effects people.
a lot of collaborative things for it. So it's
Yeah.
cool. It's a collaborative experience, which is how it should be. Should
Mhm.
just be one person name on it, unless they're doing everything.
I'm sorry. I don't know. It depends on the book, but at one point I was seeing a lot of like graphic novel collections where they actually had like a portion of the scripts for like the first
Mhm.
issue or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time actually reading that, I was just like, oh God, this is how, the writers do it. Because I didn't know
Yeah.
when I was growing up how it all works until I
Yeah.
actually saw one for the first time. I was just like, okay, that's I get it, but it's how it took a while
Yeah.
to understand it. But I definitely agree. To look
Huh.
at other people's scripts, look at other people's works, study, draw inspiration from it for sure.
Mhm.
So, uh, last but not least, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes. Yes. I'll leave right now. I'm not arguing about it. Yes. It's
Yes.
good. Enjoy what you like.
Yeah. Um, is it a blue and gold dress or is it a
I'm
white
not
and gold?
doing that one. No. Hey, it was so much fun being on the show. I appreciate it. I'll see you around.
All right, all right. Well, before you go vamoose and spend quality time having dinner with Karina, where can
Corinna.
we? So what?
Corinna.
Oh,
She'll no, it's totally fine. She'll
yeah,
never correct anyone, and I always correct people. It's fine.
right. Where can we find you on social media?
I am yes that Christian with a K on everything. So
And
it is Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever.
you also happen to have a website,
Yeah,
christianherrera.com.
christianrare.com. I totally forgot about it. I
Yeah,
should probably promote that more. I
yeah.
do have Prolong on there for free if people ever want to read that.
Which I definitely recommend reading Prolong. Uh, I I wish I was the 50th person to cry when reading
One
it.
day.
It definitely it still punches me in the gut. I will say that. So
Hmm.
it's a good story. It really is, and I love the added synopsis thing that you did in the back,
Yeah.
which kind of gave a little
Where I
extra
was mentally.
insight. Which I love that, and of course you also get that with the back part of Psychic for Hire.
Yeah. I tried not doing that for myths. I might hold off until the last issue, but we'll find out. Gotta wait for it. But yeah,
Nah,
it's been fun being on here.
Break the cycle.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to come and be a part of this. And
man.
It's good seeing you again.
Good seeing you as well. I'll talk to you soon.
Definitely. All right, gang. There you have it. A good hour and a half, which I wasn't expecting we were going this long, but great hour and a half talking with Kristian and having him here chatting about comic writing and Kickstarter comics and why pineapple definitely belongs on pizza. For all that said and done, I'm going to do the ending housekeeping, which is that Haven Comics is located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. If you just happen to be anywhere near the area, please stop by our store anytime between Wednesday through Sunday during business hours. And if you happen to have a box with us, please stop by, get your comics. We'd love to see you, hang out with you, chat with you. And we want to see you happy with your purchases. And please remember to like and subscribe. If you happen to like this show, any other show that we do here on Haven Comics YouTube page or Facebook page, please do that. Click the bell notification, share this, comment. All those things really do help us out in terms of just not really so much like a self-exposure sort of thing, but it helps other people find out about us and want to learn more. And if you want to figure out where you can find me on social media, you can just go to my link tree, tpriceartworks, or in your favorite social media, just type in at tpriceartworks in the bar. 9 times out of 10, you will probably find me there, in which there's going to be a couple of different things I'm going to be cleaning up there per se. Now, before I leave, just wanted to let a couple of people know about some different things that have been happening regarding me. Part of the reason why you haven't seen me at the shop as of late, if you have, it was just a one-off occasion. It's just because I have been taking time off to work on a pitch with my friend, Reed Beeman, that is interesting. It's definitely a lot of fun, and it's been causing me to evolve my style just a little bit. So it's been a good learning experience, and to branch out, which is probably the best way I can describe it, in a positive way, very positive way. And very thankful for Reed for giving me the opportunity to do this comic for sure, because I really love the story, and I can't wait to see this thing get picked up. So whenever I get the okay to share stuff regarding this pitch, I will definitely let you guys know. For the 20-something people that have signed up for my newsletter, I'm actually going to be doing a newsletter, and it's going to be done through Substack. So if you happen to get an email from me through Substack, that is why. And it's only going to be a once-a-month thing, maybe twice if there's going to be something really big happening down the pipeline that I want you guys to know. I don't want to plague you guys in terms of whatever emails that you just happen to get on a daily basis, if not weekly. I have no idea how frequent anyone gets anything in their inboxes anymore. But the last thing I want to do is to bug people about stuff. I just want to let you guys know about whatever events that just happen to be coming down the pipeline, whether it's convention or the next episode of Lines on the Page. I want to let you guys know about anything regarding Kickstarter, which I'm hoping that my first creator-owned project will be starting, if not the launch, definitely the pre-launch around August. And then on top of that is any other little things that I want to add, whether it's a book that I've really been enjoying, or a movie that I really think that you guys should check out, or even an album. There's definitely little things that inspire me, if not week by week, then definitely month by month. And it has helped me within the creative process of doing what I love to do, which is sequential art telling. Even if it's just a single picture, as the tiring saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And mood definitely trumps trying to look cool. So, all that being said, I definitely thank you guys for checking out this episode. There will sorry, there will be a couple of extra creators that'll be down in the pipelines. One of them, if we get the schedule figured out, is going to be Jason Flowers. So I'm hoping to hear back when we get together to do the next episode this summer. So definitely check out that episode. And I'm also going to be doing some episodes a little bit more in terms of different things regarding comic art, like inking. So that's going to be there. And that's basically it. So hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Remember, read comics. Definitely check out Kristian Herrera and all of his works, and I definitely recommend that you read Prologue. It's definitely a good story, and I definitely recommend that you try to get either the collected works of Psychic for Hire, or try to get in contact with him about We Call Them Myths, which is just now coming out. So, all that being said, adios.